helping you with Acorn and RISCOS computing.
Yeah, I can start. So thanks for inviting me back. I've been on the RISCOS scene now for 7 going on 8 years, so absolutely ages. Perhaps not compared to some, but still. In this last 7 years or so, I've done 20 or so games, many different types, which are reminiscent of some of the older popular ones, with my own twist on it, and some of them just a bit different. Things like Mop Tops, which is like Lemmings, Haunted Tower Hotel, which is sort of reminiscent of Gauntlet and Citadel and other things. Scuba Hunter, which is like an underwater Repton, and various others, but not many car games, only 2. So I sort of plan to fix that. Because the next thing, or the thing which I'm working on, kind of not exactly as we speak, but I have been working on it since the last one I released, is a sort of 3D car game. I don't quite know what to call it. I do want to put muscle cars in it, because whilst I don't think I particularly want to drive one, they do look really, really good. They're like, in real life, fast in a straight line, and I thought it would be useful to do. I'm also been doing work in translation between languages. It's something that, as a skill set, I picked up in my main job over the years, and it seems to be something relevant to RISCOS, at least in terms of the internals of it. So I want to clarify 1 or 2 things on that, because just to clarify what that is and what it's not, and let's talk a bit about it. And so when I did the mug show recently online, I made sure I ran to time, so I didn't do various things like show some of the demos. And I've just been maybe adding a few more demos and bits in today, giving the opportunity to maybe laugh at me slightly, because I'm going to show probably some of the unreleased BBC Micro bits I did when I was young, which I might possibly put out there, but some of them are quite terrible and some of them less so. So there we go. Possibly that's entertaining. So yeah, so by this time of year in August, because the deadline's a reasonable distance away, I haven't got to the point where I'm staying up late in the night, desperately trying to get to my deadline of releasing something at a show. So I'm at the point where I've designed it, worked it out. I know I'm using some technology I've used before. So I describe, for example, I can describe how the road goes. We'll look at that in a bit more detail. I did it in Zeroid, and also in a game I wrote in the 1980s, which is on bbcmicro.co.uk. Stunt Drivers, which I mentioned, and maybe I might show it if I can find it on the VM, is a game where you have a track which you race around, but these games you kind of just zoom along a road, and that's kind of conceptually simple. And I believe in starting with a simpler design and implementation, so I have some chance of delivering things in only a few months. It's not much time, you see, really. So it pre-renders the road at the start, will do, and the road will have either sweep around. I'm probably going to put some obstacles in there to avoid, and the camera will sweep along the road. Robot cars will again track the road like they did in Stunt Drivers, a bit like a Skeletric. They have like a little track they can kind of follow, with a bit of in-betweening and momentum to make it look like there's more dynamics going on. Before I figured out how to do that, or a friend of mine suggested part of the principle at work, the cars used to fly off the track, and in fact, I think I had some logic to make them reverse and drive back on again, which is quite entertaining, but didn't work that well. So I'm not doing it. So my should be the first 2-player game that I've written, I think. I wouldn't mind having a networking feature in there, but at least initially I'll just do dual keys and a split screen, either vertically. If I do it widescreen, it looks okay. It would depend on what looks good and what's reasonably quick. So yeah, I mentioned the road generation. It works on modifiers. I'll probably look inside the code for these 2. So in Dragster 1986, you can see the road sweeps left, and then Zeroid, it goes up and down as well. But it's the same principle. I'm sort of just describing the shape of it. And again, it's a kind of lazy way to do it. I don't have to draw a nice picture of what the road will look like in detail. I can just say I want it to go left, I want it to go straight on, I want it to go down, I want to have an object here, I want it to repeat a certain number of times. And it's quite efficient, really. So from a top-down view, you see it like this. This is basically what will be in memory in a buffer, I suspect. And then it will just project into the distance. I'm going to probably take, so I don't like reinventing the wheel, quite appropriate in this game as a car game. I usually start with something, strip it out to bare bones, and then populate it again. That way I don't waste time reinventing things. 3D Pingo has a capability for vertical and depth projection. It makes sprites with vector graphics, because there will be sprite overlays. I'll be doing billboarding again. However, I do use Blender. I say use it. It's once you find the right controls, it's quite possible to get to do some pretty cool stuff. I reckon I only use a tiny fraction of what it can do. And I use this fairly ancient art program called PaintShop Pro 8, which I really like. And you can get for about £8 off Amazon. If you can, then it will sort of work modern Windows if you turn enough stuff off and run in compatibility modes. I've recorded a number of pieces of music. For a change, I might show you me playing the instrument. That you probably won't see much more than the back of my head. In fact, I had to put the camera on top of a small table to look down at the keyboards, which was quite precarious and possibly very expensive if the camera fell over. So unfortunately, I didn't fall from the sense of entertainment, fortunately from the point of view of expense. So if you'll indulge me for 2 or 3 minutes, you'll sort of hear a bit of music. Hopefully it might look okay. And again, it gives me a sense of whether it would fit. So the rhythm and bass parts mostly, not like some of the leads and overdriven bits. I've got thousands of windows. Oh, that's the one. So hopefully this will just work. That's just a kind of a sketch at some levels, but yeah, some of that might probably work, and then I'll record it properly and mix it. So what I was supposed to do, and that was happening, was go to the right slide. But I forgot. There we go. Let's see if this works. So with the game, there's always an issue of doing graphics, and I don't have a great deal of time. Quite a few of the games, like with Spy Mission, the Ice Caves of Dr. Atom, not a very snappy title. That one I drew it on paper and I coloured it in and made it look nice. With 3D models, I've done some of it in StarMine physically and also digitally in Blender. But I thought, well, how can I approach it for a car game? So I considered getting some toy cars and photographing them. And that works to a point, but they always really look like a toy. They always look a little bit wrong in terms of proportions. The one on the right was about £24, I think, the blue car. But even that doesn't look as good as what I'm going to show you next. Also, there's an issue if I want to elevate it. I've got to stick things underneath it and pointing at angles. With StarMind, to the endless entertainment and amusement of my daughter, when the spaceship goes up and down, the way this was achieved wasn't exactly high tech. I basically put a sock over my hand, black sock, stuck it under the spaceship and raised it up and down and photographed it, which my daughter finds very entertaining. So I decided perhaps not to do that this time. Instead, I'm going to do this. This is a free graphics model from TurboSquid. The only constraint of the license is that I don't make the model available in a usable form in the game, which is easy in the RISC-OS engine that I've got, because they'd be basically still images at different angles. This is a Dodge Demon, I believe, which I think is a very nice looking car. Might not drive very well from my point of view, but I really like it, the look of it. Oh, okay. Yeah, there may be copyright issues if I were to use Bond. I did see Fast and Furious as some of the toys, but the wheels look really nice on this. I really like the look of it. So if we go into Blender, well, not actually, but here's a screen grab from Blender. One of the things I sort of quickly then remembered how to do after Googling it was how to move the camera around. This is the sky that was black around it. That's the car. And this is the camera. So, and you've got a lot of options in here. As you can see, it's a frighteningly sophisticated thing, but it's free, which is good. So I move the camera around the back. I have to figure out how to do that on these various controls and angles. Turning it rather the wrong way. And if I turn it a bit more, then you can see the rear of the car. So this is how you see it in the game. Basically, it's from behind driving into the screen, much like I did on Zeroid. And you'd have like, I think it was Lotus Spree or something. I can't remember what it was years ago. Pole position if you go back far enough. I'll need different colors, I think. So I can either colorize it in Blender, but this image took about 15 to 20 minutes to render on my computer. So it might just be faster for me to colorize it. PaintShop Pro's got a nice hue, saturation, and lightness. So it just convert from RGB to HSL, which preserves the saturation and the lightness on the edges. You can just change the color. So that's pretty neat. So I've got music, I've got graphics, I've got a clear design, which I've done kind of at least once before in Zeroid. So adapting it where you kind of have road edges and some nice backgrounds, because that generally seems to work in the games to have quite a large background graphic, should be fine. And I'm therefore fairly confident I can get it done for London, probably at about 3:30 in the morning with lots of coffee, about 2 or 3 nights before, if anything is to go by what I've done previously. So changing subject completely, something quite relevant to RISC-OS is the fact it's mostly written in assembler. There's quite a lot of assembler code in there, which I think would be quite difficult to translate to C by hand or to do a clean room implementation. And there's a very good reason why that's important. So about 19 years ago, I was working on a project which involved refactoring something, basically ripping it apart because it was unmaintainable and putting it into a new form. And what you kind of need to do is, sounds so poor, but you have to have what you call bug for bug compatibility. The code has to work the same as it did before, with all the undescribed features that no one really knows about present. So translation is quite a reasonable approach to achieve that. Now, you really don't want to have a push button solution, which you could make work because the result is frankly ugly. Another thing I saw done years ago, was where if you get a decompiler, you can get them online. If you Google it, you'll find them. The end result that comes out is a mess of code with things like function 1, 2, 3, 4, structure 5, 6, 7, 8, variable temporary 3, and it's not very readable. So what you really want to do is to have probably like, I don't know, 4 or 5 people, probably not paid very much to do it or anything. But since that's may not be an option, what you could do is treat this like an assistant, which goes through and partially automates translation under supervision. And you can hint at it. You can annotate things, say, I want this variable to be called this name, and this is what the function prototype is, this piece of code. And even put comments in. And the end result is you end up with something that's manageable, but without having to go through a laborious process of saying, that looks like an if statement. Well, that looks like a loop. Oh, I think that's a variable. Because you can automate that kind of work. And the way you do it, classically, the same way a compiler does it. The way a compiler works is it builds up an intermediate representation, which describes kind of like not code, source code, not destination code, but something that basically maps the logic. You do it by data tracking and code flow analysis. So you can say, oh, this label points back, it's a loop. There are multiple points to a destination, that's a go-to error, for example. It's quite possible to do it. And it's not new technology. So that's basically what I've been doing because it's fun, interesting, and I think it might be useful, but I have to see how it goes, I suppose. But there is a Visual Studio solution. Now, I was going to say at the start, because I prepared this on Sunday, which is like a long way in advance for me, there was a lack of typographical errors. But I didn't, because I don't wear my reading glasses nearly as often as I should do, I hadn't realized I couldn't spell data tracker. So it's data tracker instead. So there was at least one entertaining typographical error. A bit of code here. Some logic I've got working is the label. So I've got disassembly, and I've got label mapping, so it can detect while loops, if statements, and so on, and also function boundaries, because that can branch with link, amongst other things. So yeah, it's that's going reasonably well. But quite a bit of July working on that, so I'll carry on. Things at the bottom I have to consider it. If it's a loop, you can't have partial intersections. People write assembly code, they don't have to write it in a pretty way. You can write it so the code is a bit spaghetti-like, and then it won't really translate as easily into, say, do while, which is what I think is the easiest representation I've got. So I look for intersections, I look for branch reference counts, I look for forward or backward and so on. So that's sort of working. That's kind of fun. So I shall carry on with that. Now, I mentioned that at the mug show, I decided to run strictly to time so as not to cut people off or like prevent them from people going to see the next presentation. So I'm going to sort of in a bit sort of show things running on Windows, and some things then can come back to RISC-OS as well. It's like a useful process from that point of view. I do the games on RISC-OS first. It's much more fun for me. I find it easier to write them on there than Windows, oddly enough. So I'm one of those people who develops on RISC-OS and ports from there in this case. So mop-tops on Windows, Linux and Android looks like this. Graphics are slightly upscaled. Inside, the game actually runs at SVGA resolution. The reason for that is there's calibration with little mop-tops as they walk along or go over these bumps and so on. There's little bits of calibration that I did, and I found if I changed the scale, they kind of broke. So rather than doing that, I basically have a presentation layer model. So it's where you change how you present things, but you leave all the internal logic the same. It's a great thing in software where you can abstract. So that made it work. And that's how I've ported it. I could actually show you inside the tools that I use, because it uses the AMCOG development kit as a layer to hide the APIs. So it's easy for me to port code about and have it like, running once, so write once and run quite a few places anyway, not quite everywhere. And inside, I've shown this slide before, those are good memories. You can see that translation looks a bit like this. You've got proc sprite put, and that's then internally runs completely differently to how it does on RISC-OS. But yeah, it means it's the code's essentially very similar. There are differences. For example, there's no then instruction, it's multi-line if. Also, you can't pass parameters out to the caller. It's more basic as a language than BBC Basic, but you have a 3D library in there, which is more rich than the one which I've got, which I learned at university on one of the courses. StarMine looks like this, and I love to get texture mapping running on RISC-OS, and if I have enough coffee in a moment, then I will probably do that. So I can have a plane. All this is really is, it's just basically rendering a plane, and you just choose the different colors of the pixels based on scanning a source image, and you then have blocks. It's quite simple in principle to texture map. Someone shares some code with me. They've done in relation to Codemasters, I think, or something, or from somewhere or other, which showed the principles of how to do it. And I thought, well, that's okay. I understand the general issues. I'll write my own. Debating whether I might do it in assembly code, but again, back to the aforementioned thing that might make it kind of harder for people to maintain. The other thing about assembly code these days is you sometimes get more out the CPU by writing it in C and then letting it choose how to represent it in assembler because of branch prediction and things like that. That's something that I think someone else pointed out on a talk once to me, which is very true. So various demonstrations, including a chance to laugh at some of the fairly lame, in many cases, old BBC Micro games that I did, some of which I haven't released, and maybe I will. I just sometimes didn't think they were good enough, but that's probably true. So let's have a look. What was I going to do first? So things I didn't get to do at my talk, and also I find if I run the RPCMU with Zoom on this poor little laptop with a few other things, it basically grinds to a halt. And we'll see if it does this time. Right, wait to full screen mode. So Haunted Tower Hotel is like RPG-ish type adventure game. Hopefully you can all see that okay. I believe it worked fine when I tested it the other day. I can make the music quieter. I can hear it struggling. We'll see how well it runs. So basically you're on holiday. You can read it. You can't hear me because it's too loud. I don't think that if I start the game, I can turn the music down. There we go. Because if I turn the music down, then you can hear me talk. Otherwise, it doesn't work so well. There we go. Right. So you're on holiday. You bought an interesting old book, apparently. Went back on the train and realized you'd left it in the hotel. Had trouble getting through to them for some reason. Went back, finding this strange Gothic building mostly deserted. Went up to where you managed to speak on the phone to where the book was, waiting for the manager to come back. Perhaps you hadn't watched many horror films or something doing this. It seemed very sensible, really. Anyway, you waited there. And then you read the diary and found out apparently it was a treatise for talking to the dead, and ghosts and staff disappeared mysteriously. And so you're stuck in a haunted hotel. So that's the premise of it. You start at the top floor and it can go down. Yeah, struggling a bit, my poor little computer. It runs normally quite nicely. So you've got a book here. I can examine that if I can find my mouse pointer. It's a diary. Yeah, poor little machine struggling. It's going to run in the BBC Micro emulator as well, probably. Oh well, get a general idea. You know, obviously drop objects. There's a skull in there. Hint, hint. You can go diagonally in this game as well. If you hit ghosts hit you, get killed. You've got multicolored keys. You've also got, though, the ability to interact with some of the characters. And I'll try to briefly interact with one of them if we can cope with the fact it's running a bit slow on my poor little overloaded laptop. Got some poltergeist activity here. If you wonder why these brown things are flying around, they are supposed to be chairs, but chairs from the top. Well, that's another reason why I did it this way. Doing it from the top view means I had less work to do. There we go. So if you're interested, this is me whispering nonsense backwards with various effects on it. It sounded better in reverse than forwards. I'm playing around with audio. Another sort of unpleasant and unfriendly spirit there. So you can talk to her. And which I will do. I can ask who she is. I can press A or click on A. She's called the Grey Widow. Would you dare call me that? I can say no. She's not overly impressed with that. Apparently, I wouldn't recommend calling it. If you can say the wrong things to this character, then she will basically kill you, as I will demonstrate. Ask if you can help her. Oh, this other ghost is coming up to kill me as well. Come on, off you go. Get keen. Right, ask if you can help her. I'm lonely, would you stay with me? Oh, I think I'll say yes to that. There you go. And you die. If that gives you the general idea. But yeah, it involves various puzzles. Darkness and light are themes in this game. I tried to put different lighting on things. And also, as I say, it forms part of the puzzles as well. You've got things like torches to help you. And that's something Rick wrote, which you could perhaps check out, nice and retro. Right. Scuba Hunter, which I'll be adding more levels to when I have some more coffee. It's got like Repton, really. See if my poor little laptop will cope with this. Here we go. So, Repton underwater, basically. So you collect the diamonds. And then you've got nice exploding shark. Doesn't make much sense. Makes even less sense when you die. I'll show you in a minute. Now, if you go the wrong way down here, you're very likely to get to dark monster. Most of these things are kind of order puzzles, the sequence in which you do things. I'll quickly demonstrate. I'm trying to demonstrate how I die. There we go. Doesn't make much sense, but it's quite entertaining. So, yeah, it's here again. Try not to let it kill me this time. To go this way first, really, and preferably go down here. Yeah, you get the idea. Get available in the Plink store, and it just kind of shows. What else I think I was going to show? I can show the latest one if I can find it. Very quickly, because you might have seen it recently. Now, where did I put it? That's the organization for you. I forgot I was going to do that. It's called Pingo. I've got old Pingo. Unzip. What's in there? Yeah. I've obviously lost it. That's fairly typical. But if I remember where I put it, I'll show it. What's 19? Ooh, that's Rick Murray's one. Oh, RC1, which is obviously that. Well, I can show a spy mission. Let's do that. So I've written down some codes for it. Hang on. So this is Spy Mission, the Ice Caves of Dr. Atom, a bit like a sideways scrolling game where you shoot things without a spaceship. I'll choose a cave to start. And I'll start on this cave, which is level 2. See, we have to, in some cases, turn that down a bit. The fun thing about this, one thing the reactor can be critical, but you can perform the background. So it's scrolling the background. About that, it's generating the cave algorithmically, so it's the same every single time. Again, it sort of saves me having to sit down. I started to spend far too much time designing levels. I tried a computer to do it for me, but it's quite good fun. The other thing, it has a reactor that goes critical, so the more you get shot or the more you damage the car, eventually it blows up. It's all written on the front screen, and on the web page it describes the story. variety in the background. Quite simple levels. Try and kill this guy. It's gonna work very well. Very well, I have now run out of weapons. Weapons there at all. You have different bits of variety here, where bits we go up and down. You have to avoid different kinds of backgrounds across levels. There's quite a bit of variety in the game itself. If you look at the game objects, you can see you've got fairly sort of standard things you have in this type of game, whereas oil slicks and various other things. So it's actually good fun when it's running at full speed, and that's sold reasonably well. I did it in lockdown, so that was something to overcome. I'm going to have a quick look for 3D Pinger before you laugh at my rather inept game attempts from my childhood. So there's not that many things on here. I must be able to figure out where I put it. Probably. What's beta 2? No, that's that one. Mop Tops update. I mean, there are new Mop Tops features, including magnets and things like that. I'll just briefly show that. No idea which one I'm supposed to look at. But obviously that's because, mug. Oh, that's good. Oh, I put it in there. Well, that's handy. My filing is quite bad. Sorry about that. Right, let's try again. It's a perpetual bit of work to put things into order. So I put the new levels on with easy numbers to remember them. This has got crumbling floors in it. There's a better one to show that. Let's see. We've got vertical drills. They're fun. I just... let's see, that's reversed. If I just let him go drill a hole, I'll just show you that. The idea in this game is to get them to the exit. So it's like lemmings, but you've got to give them tools to use. And I'll make it doesn't work that well if you do this. Don't all lie, but it gives you the general idea. Right, here we go. Let's try this one briefly. Oh, you've got magnets in this, that's quite good fun. Because you can sort of track them. The idea is you're supposed to blow them over the other side. Here we go, let's get the fan. So all the sound effects are real-time generated through my little synthesizer I've written. There we go. That enables you to get them across. We've got crumbling floors as well, so there's quite a few little things. 3D Pingo is a bit strange. And the hardest challenges in this game was to not make it too silly, really. Because it was quite, well, a bit too much, really. I don't know how that's going to... struggling. Oh, it's not too bad. So you've got to kind of collect these things, avoid the nasties. So you've got full 3D in terms of the way it's described. It's actually a flat image, and I project it into 3 dimensions by expanding it. So that was a neat trick. You leave it at the door at the end. That's good. You get little shadows under them or something that tells you where they are, like I clearly didn't observe there. Yeah, it's quite a strange game, really. It's been evolving since about 1985. So, enough if you like. Just wander around the levels. I'm going to add more levels to this as well, so that's quite good fun. So that's probably enough of this, because you can get far too much of that sort of thing. If I shut things down, if I find my mouse, there we are. I'll do it nicely. It's probably a good idea. It probably doesn't make an awful lot of difference. Right, quick. Yeah, I was going to show this sort of a bit so you can. So this is not particularly good. Let's have a look. Right, let's see how well this cope's being demonstrated. So you saw Spy Mission as it is now, which is quite nice, and it's really good. When I was 12, I wasn't able to do quite the same level of quality. But my school friends thought it was fun at the time. I couldn't spell either. I couldn't spell at least one of these words. Can't remember what it was. And the game is really boring, and I will never release it, I suspect. There you go. It's about the only game in the world you can basically outrun the bullets, I think. But yeah, quite bad. There you go. I was 12 years old. I did a high score table, which I don't do nearly often enough. So what else have I got? Oh, we did mention about the car game, which I'm doing. So this one is on bbcmicro.co.uk. It is playable. It's simple, but it is playable. Did that after the previous one. So here the road goes left, the road goes right. Goes straight for a bit, goes left and right. And it blows up when you get a wall. So if I go that, I'm pretty sure you couldn't do old. We might be able to in this one. Yeah, there we go. Then you can see I've got data left, right, left, right, straight on, which if I showed you inside zero, which I didn't show you, then you would see a similar thing, but more sophisticated. It's more of a programming language, really. But it's the same principle. So there we go. What else we got? This one sort of looks all right, but it's named by my cousin, but I've never released it. And it's possibly a bit childish, I'm not sure. Some of it is. I wonder why I didn't run it. There we are. So there we go, written and devised. I found I wasn't very good at this when I tried it earlier. But for some reason, you have to catch. Things are supposed to run away from you. Don't know why. Something seemed a good idea at the time. There we go. I'm painfully slow because I didn't write very efficient code. And you go at the same speed as the adversary, so good luck if they ever catch you. But with some of these really simple games, it's probably the best for the best that they're so small. But there's quite a few. I've got a lot I've never actually released, and probably for good reason. Let's do maybe one more. Otherwise, it can get a bit tedious. There are about 50 of them or something. This is a dreaded line, and it's just strange. I don't know why. It's like a two-player snake. Well, it's a snake with a computer-controlled snake that tries to kill you. It's just very, very strange. But yeah, you're supposed to collect enough of it, and then you finish. So yeah, not that great. So there we are. But some of it's all right, and it's on bbcmicro.co.uk. I think there are about 3 or 4 of them up there. So maybe that's enough of that, and then put something which looks a bit better on for a minute. I haven't released this version of Star Mine. There's one on Steam based on the RISC-OS code. The code's essentially the same inside, and I want to port some features back. So I start it. We'll see if it runs, if it codes on this computer. I need to get a new computer. It's relatively poor performance, as you can see, because it hasn't started yet. There we are. I put that on the front of it for some reason. It's probably a good idea. Well, I'm trying to advertise RISC-OS on it or with it. So let's just start it. The idea of this is a bit like Star Maze U. On the BBC Micro, you have to collect some jewels inside a mine, shoot the aliens and get out, essentially. There's more of a story than that. Oh, I should have.
You must find and shoot asteroids to gather star jewels.
That doesn't help if I remember the controls.
When the deputy detective.
Not very friendly.
Machine deputy. Find machine deputy. Which appears as a blue potato view. Asteroid detected.
Self-destruct. So yeah, same basic codes on RISC-OS, and that's slightly more advanced than what I have currently out there. I'm testing it and putting some more levels in it. Again, I want to do a new release on RISC-OS with the additional levels and additional features in that game, which aren't present on the RISC-OS version, because that would be cool to do. And so let's see. I'll show you mop-tops running, because that's, it proves it exists, which is it's not vaporware. I don't like vaporware very much. I like to do real things. Here we go. So very similar to RISC-OS, but designed so you could read it on a phone screen. At least mostly. This is probably microscopic. So, well, I think there's no the build for the phone. I changed. I swapped that out. I remember. So, oh yeah, you've got save levels both on the StarMine and this one with nice clickable images, which is handy. You may notice that we have I'll turn the music off. That's good. I can't turn it down this version. So yeah, the idea is you get the mop-tops over here. You can build it a ladder. I got the idea for this to watching my daughter playing magic mushrooms and designing levels when she was young, and she features in the game in voice form. Here we go. Again, this is the same code, and I translated it slightly, again, semi-automatic translation, which wasn't too hard because it's essentially the same language type. It just picked up common forms and altered it, removing things specific to BBC Basic and adding things in, which just made it a lot less work. That was a relatively simple code translator. There we go. So I can speed this up. Otherwise, it's a bit dull. And the way I exported the sounds from RISC-OS is IDSP has a record feature. So these are recordings of sounds generated on RISC-OS. So there we go. I'll just get them to go. There we go. So yeah, tap or click, which gives you an indication. So in terms of the tool that I'm using for that side, it's occurred to me I could open it up and I could drag it over. Mop-tops open it. There we go. So what you've got is you've got a slightly monolithic thing with all the codes at the end, and you'll see something that's suspiciously like BASIC. But I've had to do things a little differently because it works completely differently with its API. So I've got an AGK bit. I've also got the same library files we have in RISC-OS. So kit core, kit sound, kit tiles. So tiles is kind of much the same, really. You've got, same logic, really. However, you can't return values. So I sort of thought of an assembly type where I had some variables to return into. That kind of made it. It's a bit of an annoying limitation, really. But you can pass pointers to things in, but that makes things very clunky, not very pretty at all. And some of this is really maybe not perfectly efficient, but I do it efficiently enough. There's no point in over-optimizing. So what I've got some RISC-OS systems in terms of the color maps that RISC-OS provides in terms of the 64 default colors. But when it's doing things like sprites, drawing, it looks it up in a map. I think it's keyed or first letters. It's not quite so slow. It's again primitive. And then it will use the AGK APIs and then turn it the right way up. From my point of view, I think graphics origin should be at the bottom left. But most systems have it on the top left. So again, once I've got that, it means I can port to and from RISC-OS quite contentedly, which is nice, because it means RISC-OS is a useful development tool for me for other things as well, which is a nice thing. I think. So there we go. So I suppose maybe that's enough. I think I've been going for it's about 45 minutes. Carry on going as long as you like. Talk lots. I don't know if I want to maybe open it up to questions now. Any questions?
Anybody got any questions?
Nags, complaints. Complaints works better.
Remember, you can unmute yourself. Okay, boom. Yep.
Yeah, we're all unmuted at this end. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a two-player car game. I like car games. Two-player would be even more fun, I think. So I don't know. Have you got any potential date? Was that London show, or is that later on? Did you say?
No, London show. So I find it really helpful to have a deadline, and showing it to people and sharing it and socializing it for me is great fun. I really love doing that. It makes it feel very worthwhile. And it's be initially a two-player, and I'd like to make it so maybe you had a local area network. I could get the games to talk to each other. That'd be great fun too. But I won't do that in the first instance because I haven't tried it before, and feature creep can kind of kill a project. So yeah, glad looking forward to it, and it should be good fun. Chance to race each other. Should make playtesting more interesting in the beta phase. Yeah, it's coming out soon.
Are you going to have a phantom car in case there's only one player, so you can race against a sort of whatever clever car, as it were?
Well, yes, there should be multiple cars on the track because so in stunt drivers they follow a program that's actually encoded into the track itself. I think I probably will make it maybe slightly simpler in this instance again because it's just a forward game where you're zooming into the screen and you haven't got a track to go around. It should enable me to keep things a bit simpler. But yeah, it'd be cool to have a track that's in the game, car that's in the game with you, or multiple ones, and see where you rank. I think that sort of thing is fun. We started playing back in the day on the BBC Micro. I think it was a Grand Prix or something, 3D by Software Invasion. It's good fun. So yeah, that's what's going to happen. Hopefully, it look nice with the Dodge Demon. I might put some more in. It just depends on time, really, to get the content done. It's a bit laborious. It should look nice.
Any questions?
It's a quiet voice. I can't quite hear.
With regard to your terrible games, we're thinking the way I'd wrote mine, you need a low score table rather than a high score. And we're wondering if we should form Duff Games Incorporated for all those, terrible ones that you shouldn't even pay for.
Could do. Could have a duffgames.co.uk. Some of them are all right. They're up there, and one or two of them look okay. And people enjoy playing on the forum. I think Time Runner, I thought High Retro Game Lord playing it on YouTube, and it got quite a few likes. But the spy game, the spy mission, the original one, is something that has not, or definitely probably shouldn't be inflicted on people. Although maybe they should do because maybe it's just funny. I don't know. So, what are the plans, aspiration, co-translation tools for Riscos? I would like to translate. Well, again, it comes down to what the output looks like and whether people were happy with it. But I think it would be useful to translate portions of the code, like maybe file call or whatever, into C so it can be more easily extended. And it's something that I'm finding it interesting, enjoyable, and doable at the moment. So that's what I'd like to do with it. But it really depends on whether people like the output of it. They might think, well, I don't like the look of that C code. Or it might be that somebody else has a better way of doing it. But that's currently what I'm trying to do with it. I was answering to a question in chat, by the way, from Nitrax. So any other questions?
Don't be shy, everybody. Ask lots of questions.
I'm pleased there are not too many complaints. That's always encouraging.
Press the space bar if you want to use the microphone.
I think we're going to have to get Chris to have his top of his head tattooed.
Yeah, we're just saying, Chris, I don't know where your camera is, but we're sure it's not in the right place to get a good picture of your face most of the time. I think it's set up too high wherever it is. No? No, I don't think it is. No, he's muted himself.
I can hear faint voices.
Yeah, sorry, I'm miles away on the microphone. We're just saying about Chris's camera placement.
Indeed. It's a tricky thing. It's not too hard to. Looks like I'm wearing cool shades. I'm just wearing reading glasses. Oh well, I can pretend. So it's cool. Plasma music tools. Yes, I'm working on a tracker. I've written the engine for it. I just need to spend some time testing it. I'm really hoping I can have something running for London, at least, like the textual level input to our DSP. I've also got a cool, rather nice book that Chris Dewhurst wrote, which is open because I have been reading it, called, I can hold it up in front of me so it's visible. It's called The Application Tutorials and Listings Book, and I found it helped explain how to write desktop applications really easy. It's got good examples in there. It shows how to trigger the SWIs, so I'm finding it very useful. And that I use for the interface. I've stolen bits of graphics from a program I wrote years ago called Wavebox, so I can use those controls to help drive it. And my plan is to have like a tracker running in RISC OS. And there's various bits of maintenance now, DSP like key up, so I'm wanting for MIDI work. And I've got various effects algorithms I wanted to bring into it. But I'm trying to be careful to make sure I don't do so many things at once I don't deliver anything because I'm swapping too much. So as a bare minimum, I'd like to have the tracker be able to play a text file, and that'd be quite a cool thing. So what you'd have in the editor, and then the editor might come later. I need to write an article, which I've started to think about on this as well, because Archive did an article on trackers a while back, and I've got a part 2, which I want to deliver. So no screenshots of the RDSP music tracker except for mock-ups, because I always do mock-ups and also biro drawings. There's always a request for WIMP games, so maybe that will happen in time as I get more used to it. I also talked about having a codeless game generator as well, just as an editor. When Sim, who co-writes music with me, so I was sort of talking about. And maybe that's something I might be doing next year because I don't know, just have to prioritize things. But yeah, as I get more used to WIMP programming, then that becomes an option in the kit. Being aware that I have to write my own code from scratch, not use anybody else's examples, and then that'll be a shim. Because of course you could just open a window and just draw into it at the very least. So basically, it's a game in a window, and that wouldn't be massively difficult to do. It's just a question of having some tooling run menus. So at some point, that is now much easier. Now that book's been written, because I mentioned I'm relatively new to RISC OS, and I haven't got I was out the price range of what I could afford years ago. I have a lack of knowledge around it, but it's improving. So I could do that. As David Fugi asked a question. So David asked a question. So, any other questions?
Can I just check? I think most of your games you say you're doing updates. I know I got one at the recent Wakefield show. Do we normally go via a code which you then go back into Pling Store on?
That's right. So I update it in Pling Store. I had the odd person come to me saying, "Oh, could you just send it to me?" And I do that as well. But you then see it as an update. So yeah, I updated Mop Tops. The next one I was going to update was Scuba Hunter. I thought we used to have some more levels to it. The 3D Pingo could have new levels, and it doesn't take me very long to do levels for it. In fact, speaking of last minute stuff, before the show, which was on the Saturday, on the Friday, I did most of the levels on the Friday morning. So for me to double the number of levels wouldn't take more than probably a day, I should think, for it. Although I might add, like what I did in Mop Tops, add extra features in the game, because that made it easier. And also it feels like there's more value in the game. So I might add some more power-ups, because only one power-up at the minute, which is the cage. But I could add another one, which might make you faster or jump higher or something. Or hover, so you wouldn't fall. So I can add things on that. Very, very simple in terms of logic. And that means I can design that into the level. So you have to get the power-up before you can traverse the level completely and finish it. So yeah. That will happen. I'm always going to ask for more levels. Mop Top's up to 40 now, so it's getting there. And when it comes to things like Spy Mission, where it's auto-generated again, it's not too hard. Just have to test it. The bigger I make the game, so Star Mine on Windows has 10 levels on it. the bigger I make the game, the more testing I have to do. It's the only issue. So that means I have to make it so that behavior never changes, so I don't have to retest if I add new things in. So yeah, all those things that have been mentioned should be possible, and I'd be happy to do it. Any other questions, complaints, nags? No one commented on the fact, I did warn you that on the video I was focusing on the instrument, that my head's chopped off. Could be argued to be an improvement, I don't know. So anything else? Otherwise, I suppose the tradition is to open up to general chat probably, but doesn't mean you can't ask me questions in that or ask to see anything. Did you think on that, when I showed the games, I thought the maze one wasn't terrible. Is it worth sort of releasing any of that stuff onto BBC Micro people again, or not bother? Do you think? I've got various other ones.
Good question. Is anyone here at BBC? I've got an Electron.
I did an Electron version. I can vaguely hear. I've got an Electron version of Vortex I never released. I just changed the timings on that. Weirdly enough, it appeared in the Electron user group, allegedly. Right. Apparently, someone nicked it from my website, but without the instruction screen, it was an HTML.
Yeah, I was just saying I haven't got a BBC, but I do have an Electron, so
Well, might be to make things work. Best of BBC Games compilation. Well, that's an interesting thought. But I could write a few assembly code ones very quickly. Theoretically, I should be able to, because really, you haven't got a lot of room. And I had some graphics which were quite nice and never used. So maybe so. Suggestion from Mark there. So maybe I'll do that on the chat. Right. Oh, hang on. Do you ever play around with any open source game engines? Well, I hadn't. I ended up messing around with other games sometimes. I mean, like on sort of playing Cuphead, which is quite an impressive thing. No, I didn't. I haven't spent time messing around with some of those things and extending it. Another question in the chat. I suppose because I kind of end up liking doing like the fundamental things and then just creating the engine. I'm also mindful that everything I've done on RISC-OS is effectively original, well, mostly original. And it doesn't infringe on the IPR, so I'm always very careful about that. Although one or two things aren't perfect. So, should we open this up to to what you normally do? If you have a chat, can't have a virtual pint. I've only got a cup of tea. There we go. I love tea, as it says.
Well, that's a big mug, though. I have to say, it looks like a pint half.
It's a long meeting, and I have a lot of caffeine normally, or I probably fall asleep. So, might be considered rude. I do have far too much, actually. It's probably something I should correct, but I won't. Got to have something, haven't you? All right. Well, someone's finished the glass of Bailey's. That's a good idea. Virtual points. Right. Well, I guess I'll maybe hand it back to you, Chris.
Right. Okay. So, thank you for coming, well, attending, viewing, presenting, or whatever you'd like to call it. I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and once again, thank you for an interesting presentation and talk on your developments. And just a general note for the people, we haven't finalised the September meeting, but the October meeting is going to be Andrew Oyston, I think it's pronounced his name, who will be doing a talk about the retro scene and how he got involved in RISC-OS twice, apparently, and his experiences. And he's a blogger, apparently, as well, and how he's got involved in it. So that's October. We haven't finalised any other meetings yet. Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming along and attending virtually as well as physically down at the thing there. Peter and Terry are giving a wave. So I'll sign you off and I'll stop the recording.